Hey everyone, it's Wade from PR Guitar Instruction. So who's ready to learn some variations of the D minor chord? We'll start by playing our open D minor chord. And you can play this chord by placing your first finger on the first fret on your high E string or your first string. Take your middle finger, place it on the second fret on your G string, and then take your ring finger or your pinky, whichever feels more comfortable for you, and then place it on the third fret on the B string. And remember to play your open D string for this chord. You don't want to play your 6th or your 5th strings. Keep those muted for this chord. So the notes on this chord, starting with your open D string, you have D, A, D, and F. So you have D, A, D, F. So altogether, we have the D minor chord. So, if we reference our circle of fifths, which you can find on my page in the links in the description below, you'll see that D minor has one flat, which is B flat. So altogether, D minor is D, E, F, G, A, B flat, C. Alright, so for our first variation of D minor, we have the D minor add 9. And you can play a D minor add 9 by placing your first finger on the second fret on the G string. Take your middle finger, place it on the third fret on the D string. And then take your third finger and place it, or your ring finger, and place it on the third fret on the B string. And keep your 6th and your 5th strings muted for this chord. You'll have an open high E string. So the notes for this chord, starting with your middle finger on the D string, you have F, A, D, and your open E. So altogether, we have our D minor add 9 chord. Alright, so for our next variation we'll be looking at is a D minor flat 6. And you can play a D minor flat 6 by placing your first finger on the first fret on the high E string, and then take your third finger or your ring finger and place it on the third fret on the G string, and then take your pinky and place it on the third fret on the B string. You'll play your open D string for this chord as well. Keep the 6th and 5th strings muted. So the notes for this chord, starting with the open D, you have D, B flat, D, and F. So altogether, we have the D minor flat 6 chord. Alright, so for our next variation, we have a D minor 7. And you can play a D minor 7 simply by placing your first finger and bar it across the B string and your high E string, so your 2nd and your 1st string. And then take your middle finger and place it on the 2nd fret on the G string. You'll play your open D string as well for this chord. The 6th and the 5th strings remain muted. So, the notes for this chord, starting with your D string, open D string, you have D, A, C, and F. So, altogether, we have our D minor 7 chord. Alright, our next variation for the D minor chord, we have D minor 9th chord. And you can play this by placing your first finger on the first fret on the B string, take your second finger and place it on the 2nd fret on the G string, and then take your third finger and place it on the 3rd fret on the D string. It almost looks similar to a C major chord, and you're right. A C major chord is played as so, and then if you just take your middle finger and your ring finger and you drop it down one string for each finger, you get your D minor 9th chord. And remember to keep your 6th and your 5th strings muted for this chord. Your open high E string will be the only open string. So the notes for this chord, for our D minor 9th chord, starting with our third finger on the D string on the 3rd fret, you have F, A, C, and E. So, altogether, our D minor 9th chord. Alright, so for our last variation of the D minor chord, we'll be looking at something called a D minor 11th. And you can play this either by placing your first finger and barring it across the second and first strings, your B and your high E string, and then play your open D string and your G string. You'll keep your 6th and your 5th strings muted for this chord as well. So, you have your D. The notes in this chord will be D, G, C, and F. So, altogether, you have the D minor 11th chord. You can play that chord here, or if you like, you can play it starting on the 8th fret on the B string with your first finger. Then take your middle finger, place it on the 10th fret on the 6th string or your low E string. Then take your ring finger and place it on the 10th fret on the D string, and then your pinky and place it on the 10th fret on your G string. Remember to keep your A string muted when you place your middle finger on the 6th string. You can lay that across the A string and that should mute that string out. You also want to mute your high E string, your first string, so when you play the chord, normally, or you should bring your palm closer, or your hand closer when playing this chord, and that should mute the high E string. So then altogether, we have the D minor 11th chord. Alright, so those are all the variations I have for you on the D minor chord. If you liked the video, feel free to hit that like button, and remember to drop a comment. We always appreciate your feedback. You can find PR Guitar Instruction by clicking the links in the description below. Remember to hit that subscribe button for more tips, tricks, and techniques on the guitar. Thanks for tuning in, everyone!